And you also, in your book, talk about the 4 tools that can be used. Would you say a little more about that?
You know, Emmett, I was absolutely fascinated when I started reading about the brain research that currently they're finding that this area here in our forehead is called the prefrontal lobe. So much activity goes on there that's related to meditation. And within the last 100,000 years, that's been the evolutionary growth of the brain, has been
Mm-hmm.
the prefrontal lobe. So whatever you do, Emma, do not fall on your forehead.
I'll do my
Because,
best. I'll do my
because they
best.
find that the personality resides there,
Mm-hmm.
as well as these incredible tools called intention, attention, receptivity, and awareness. Certainly there are many more. I mean, consciousness is there, and social consciousness, empathy, compassion. Seems to be related in that area. And that's what, when you really sit and reflect on yourself as in meditation or doing mind training, these are the tools that you develop
Mm-hmm.
and that grow and evolve yourself. Basically, become more conscious. We
Mm-hmm.
become more conscious.
Mm-hmm.
And I use, for example, just doing the relaxation, you have to have the intention to tell your body it's time to relax. Because once the brain is told and the body responds, the brain will do all kinds of machinations in order to relax, to do what you've told it to do. So, gosh, some of us, we know intention, but do we really use intention to the best of our ability?
Mm-hmm.
And then the second part we were talking about in terms of attention, we were saying, okay, let's put our attention on the sensations in the body. Really begin to feel that this body is alive. The mind responds, and that attention then puts a focus there on all those sensations. It brings everything more to light and more consciousness. And then your sense of receptivity, being able to be receptive to what this body-mind is bringing to you without judging, without evaluating. We could call it mindfulness, I guess. But also you're doing it in a sense of this is the way things are, right here, right now. And it brings us into that place of awareness, which is being here right now. The other part that I think is really important as you get into the alpha state is you begin to experience space. Ah. So there's thoughts coming through that between each thought is a little space.
Mm-hmm.
There's a breath that comes in,
Mm-hmm.
and between the exhale and the inhale, there's a little space. And of course, a heartbeat we know. So as we begin to a sense of space, gets us a little less so emaciated in that
Mm-hmm.
wonderful description you
Mm-hmm.
described of a personality,
Mm-hmm.
of a personality that hasn't really experienced space.
Mm-hmm.
Experience that really hasn't experienced a sense of a little detachment from this movie that's constantly moving.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you begin to recognize the observer, it's fairly still.
Mm-hmm.
So there's now an infusion between this beginning to be this silent place, but it's also a beginning to be still, and then there's this movement out here. So to be able to have the experience of both, you begin not to be so attached to all those worries that
Mm-hmm.
you described so well.
Mm-hmm. Because we realize we're not really attached to them, but we think we're attached to them, and that's where we get stuck.
I've
And
been in a meditation, Emmett, where I've
mm-hmm.
been watching the events go by in my mind. Like, oh my gosh, it's like a train going by, and wow, now we're in Switzerland. Oh my gosh, now we're back home with Mother 300 years ago. And then we go on, and then I could actually see my mind grab on to that thought. It's almost like, those things that you have in the kitchen that you pick up your vegetables with. Just pull it out and just hold on to it and just start making it go round and round in my mind. That was a choice I made, but an unconscious choice. In my opinion, when your mind becomes more trained, you'll say, I'm not going to choose to do that. I'll just move on to something else. The mind becomes more flexible, more versatile.
And in the fourth tool, after the receptivity, shall we?
The receptivity is awareness. So I carry that awareness now into theta. Once the bridge is open with visualization and tactile sensations, then you literally drop into a slower brainwave, less frequency. The frequency is slower. And you move into what's called theta. Theta brainwaves is where a lot of our emotions, our repressed emotions, are in the area called the hippocampus. Not that memory isn't everywhere in the body, but the repressed emotions are there. Events. It's also a place where that's called the amygdala, which has a lot of our fear resides in that area. And if there is an incredible amount of fear in that particular area of the brain, it's called the mammalian brain or the limbic system, and theta brain waves are primarily there, but they're all over the brain as well. But in that area, then you're locked into, as you were describing so well, the past, the emotional past. And once we face some of these emotions, you drop down in there, and an event will come up where you haven't thought about forever. If you begin to look at that, I call face it, you're aware of it, you face it, then you begin to see, oh, I remember that, and I start describing the situation, and I can feel it where it is in my body. I can tell the emotion that surrounds it. I can begin to get so engrossed in it that I can begin to let it go. So I call it face it, embrace it, erase it. And I can begin to erase it. And if I do that enough, the mind begins to become quieter. Those old memories, those old emotional repressed memories keep the mind agitated all the time, this incessant talking. Once I face it and look at it, as you know in your work, you face them, the mind stabilizes. And when the mind stabilizes, then you can become what the spiritual people call, you purify your mind. My way of doing is say, I just stabilize the mind so there's more space between each word and concept, and I become more conscious. And when I become more stabilized with my mind, I become more at peace. I find that I go into a place called home base there, where I'm at home, I feel safe, I feel as if I can go there at any time. It's like my refuge. It's like your altar inside. You go into your own refuge there. Everybody has a home base. Everybody needs to know, my opinion, needs to know where it resides inside of them.
What a wonderful way to look at it.